May or may not want to talk about it if you don't want to, but did you ever have to cause a race to go into caution, under caution?
I was thinking today we was all together. I probably about 4 or 5 times. It wasn't, everybody acts like I did it lots. I did it at Martinsville. I did it at Daytona once or twice. And
why are you covering your mouth?
Well, it's funny. It's funny. He admits it because a lot of it happen all the time.
Let me tell you something. I went to Martinsville and I pulled a caution out for Gary Nelson, which he was the crew chief for Bobby Allison. Was on that 22. Miller, Buick, I think.
Okay.
Might have been Monte Carlo. Yeah. But James Hilton missed the show or something, and James actually put me onto it, and he said, you want to make $1,000? And I said, how's that? And he said, Allison needs a caution quick. And, but I don't know how it is now, but back then, the guy had to, whoever started the race, he got credit for the points. So, when they come up and said it was $1,000, and all I told Nelson was, you tell Bobby to have his seat belts loose. And I spun out when the race started. Martinsville people would, how they used to plug up, and they'd hit each other, and they'd spin out?
Oh, yeah.
I told Marshall, the only person noted besides the guy helped me, I told my dad about it. He came down for that race. He got where he wasn't coming as many, but that show, he was at it since it was close to home, and I said, now listen, I was at the back, so I said, I'm going to spin this thing out pretty quick.
Yeah.
I said, we need that $1,000. So the next week I spun out, and Harold Kinder, do you remember Harold?
Yeah.
He used to wear those bubble goggles and this flag stand.
Yeah.
He was up in there and spun out. And I tell you the race, I think it was a race where Rick Hendricks may have won his first race with Jeff Bodine.
That was Martinsville.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't swear to about it. I might be wrong on the date and all. I know it was Martinsville.
Like All-Star Racing or something.
Yeah. So, and I may be wrong on that, but I think I'm right. So the next week after that, where we was, Dick Beatty said, Ronnie Thomas, come to the NASCAR trailer. And I go down to the trailer, and how he would always do, if he was mad at me or not, he would always say, Ronnie, if he was ticked, he would say, son. And I went there and he said, come over here and sit down, son. I said, uh-oh. I knew what it was about. Yeah. So I sat down, and he said, if you did what I think you did last week, I'll park you for a while in racing. Well, you know how it is. What are you talking about? He said, why did you spin out last week? The race starts, you spin out. And I said, Dick, I got old tires on the car. And Skip was talking about, when you talk about old tires now, a lot of people will put a lap or two on a set of tires and put them on 10 minutes later or an hour later. That's old tires. It's like Skip said, I was going down Juniors and to Petty's and some of these places. And what I do, they'd say go to the tire pile, and you might go back there and they might give you 20 tires that you can run on the next week. Someone wouldn't have but 5 or 10 laps on them. I mean, that's what you have.
And you looked at the wear spots and you said, this one's going to work, this one's going to work.
And save
even if they didn't slide them.
Yeah, when I had old tires on, I said, Dick, I had old tires on from a race or two earlier, and they were hard, and they would harden up some. And I said, when I went down the corner, I was running a little bit too fast. And I said, when I hit the brakes, it just spun around. He said, you don't run fast enough to spin out. I thought that was so funny. But Harold Kinder was up in the flagman stand, and I was backwards in the first corner. And, they would not throw that caution flag out. And I seen a leader coming out of 4. And I said, I'm just going to sit here. And, of course, right before he got to the start-finish line, they waved the flag, and I started up and spun around. So I guess they seen I wasn't going to move. But, $1,000, if I'm not mistaken, we probably had to finish 10th or 12th to get $1,000.
I questioned that on TV last night.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, see, it happens all the time.
I said, he needs money.
Yeah.
You never know what goes on.
You don't.
And then after, all of a sudden, he starts it up and he goes. Not that it happened, but.
Well, I mean, I remember the days of there's always a code they'd say over the radio. What was your code?
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't remember. We've thought about a dozen, but the fellow was my crew chief then. Yeah. He passed away, but I was telling Skip it was something.
Like what's your oil pressure or something?
It was, he said, watch the oil, and I swear I believe that is what our code was. I was telling him today. Yeah. Watch that oil pressure, and that was my thing because one time we was at Daytona or Talladega, and Kel needed caution, and I knocked out a gear coming out of 2, and when I got to 3, And I got to middle in 3 and 4, and I said, I think I'm running too fast. And I was trying to slow up the car without it, and I got to pit road, and I was still running too fast. And I just slowed up to I said, I got to stop before I get on pit road. I just stopped before I got all the way. I was off the track, but, on almost pit road, and they throw the caution flag out. But, now a lot of times Junior, I did it for him, I don't know, a couple times. Junior liked to give you parts. He he wasn't much on money, but I'd go down and get parts. But
I trade you parts for a caution.
yeah, I mean, and it wasn't, it was,
Called
I
bartering.
can't remember. I did it 4 or 5 times for different people. And you just, hey, Buddy Arrington, people tell you I think he was, at Petty was 7 laps down at at Dover.
Yeah.
And he made up 7 laps and ended up winning the race.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah, and they said Doc Buddy showed up the next week or 2 driving Richard's hauler. Joey Arrington would tell you if that's the truth. Now, he might not tell it, but people around the sport back then would tell you it was something like that. He, that he would stop up against the wall,
I'll have to get
and they'd
him
throw
on.
the caution flag out, and then he'd stop somewhere and they'd throw. He made up. I think Richard made up 7 laps and won the race.